Welcome to the Women Matter podcast with your host, Marlene C. DeRosso. Join us as we delve into all things women, from the complexities of fertility to empowering discussions on femininity and confidence. Our segments shine a light on the journey of family building, offering awareness and support to those navigating this path. We're here to tackle impactful topics crucial to women's lives, empowering you to be unapologetically yourself while embracing your femininity. Tune in for insightful conversations and inspiration to live boldly in every aspect of your life. Because here on the Women Matter podcast, every woman's story matters. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Marlene DeRosso. I am your host of the first episode of the brand new podcast called the Women Matter podcast. I'm so excited to be here today recording this. And I have to tell you, this is something that I wanted to do for so long. But like us women, we find a way to talk ourselves out of what we want to do for one reason or another. So if not for anything else, I want you out there that are watching this to use this first episode as a motivating factor to write that book, record that podcast, go on live. Just do it. You got this, right? Nothing is ever going to be perfect the first time around, but if you never start, then you never know. So welcome to my podcast. This is the first ever podcast on the Women Matter podcast that I created. And I'm excited to be here to share my knowledge from my lived experiences for things that have to do with all things women, but especially my infertility journey. So I am starting off by having a segment on the Women Matter podcast called Your Fertility Matters. And the first episode under that Your Fertility Matters segment is called Ready or Not, Be Prepared for Your Fertility, right? Now, the reason why I wanted to do this particular episode is because I think it's important for women, men too, to be prepared to have a baby, even though you're not ready to have a baby. Now, those are one of the lessons that if I could go backwards, that I probably would have, invested in and learning myself how to prepare myself to be pregnant, or how to prepare myself prior to even wanting to start a family, because at that point I would kind of know what to expect. So in my wisdom, although I've only been on this earth 40 small years or short years, 40 and a couple more, but I wanted to talk about my expertise and why I feel that it's important to get ready for your fertility even before you're ready to have a baby, right? So what we're going to talk about today is some of the ways that you can prepare for your fertility. A lot of what I'm going to discuss centers around the woman, but of course, with fertility, we need both the male and the female organs in order to create these babies, right? So with that, I'll try to remember to incorporate some of the aspects of what I'm speaking about as it relates to the men as well, because it's important for them to prepare for fertility as well. So ready or not, let's prepare for your fertility. All righty, so let's jump right into it. One of the ways that I'm going to go over like a series of things, and I might go in order of, not necessarily importance, but as they come to me, different things that I feel that, women and men should focus on when it's time to prepare for their fertility. But it's not necessarily in any particular order, so to speak. So one of the first things that we should do in terms of preparing for our fertility is to make a plan and take action. Now, we all know what happens with plans, right? We make these plans, but sometimes in life, things don't always go according to plan. And guess what? That's okay. You have to be willing to be open to shifting and finding another way to go about what it is that you want. So whether or not you are in a committed relationship, or you're married, or you're not with someone as of right now, make a plan about what starting your family looks like, or what it means to you, right? How do you want it to look? So at least you have an idea of what you want to do. Now, the reason why that's important is because, a lot of people sometimes start off by saying they don't want children, right? So if you don't want children, you want to make plans for, maybe I'll change my mind in the future, maybe you won't. But at that point, it's something that's not weighing on you, because in your brain at that particular stage in your life, you don't want children. And guess what? That's okay. So for those of you who do want to have children, then you want to make that plan to think about, okay, well, how many children, by what age you would want to do them, what are some goals that you want to accomplish prior to even, deciding to have the children. So that's what I mean by make a plan, right? And we can delve into that a little bit more. But on the general aspect, you try to make a plan and take action when it comes to your fertility. The next thing I would say when you're preparing for your fertility is to see your doctor. Now, I think it's very, very important for women to seek their doctor from the time that you're able to see a gynecologist. Oftentimes, women start going to the gynecologist at around 18. It's important that I think women now who have children start to have those type of conversations with their daughters about seeing the gynecologist. Because the reason why it's important to see the doctor is there are a series of tests that are done that can help determine a baseline of where you are in your fertility. So remember, although you may not be ready to have babies yet, you want to make sure you get these tests done so that you can determine where you are. Getting these baseline tests kind of give you a baseline and a snapshot of what your fertility looks like. And having that snapshot, you'll be better equipped on how to move forward when you're actually ready. So when seeing that gynecologist, one of the main things I think that everyone should bring up, whether you're, adolescent to young adult, is your cycle, your menstrual cycle, also known as your period, right? It's important to understand what your period is doing. Is it a heavy period? Is it a light period? Do you have pain? Is it lasting too long? Is it not lasting long enough? Are you even getting a period on a regular basis? What is a regular basis? So those are all of the things that I think it's important for you to talk to your doctor about, and also get to know your own body and educate yourself on what it is that's going on with you. Because even though a lot of times in science and the way that life works, things happen within a certain amount of time, or they're supposed to happen a certain way, that's not always what transpires, because everybody's body is different. So it's very important to be in tune with your body so that when you do start having these type of conversations and the doctors are talking to you about, what should happen versus what's happening with you, that light bulb can go off where you say, oh, well, by the way, this is how my cycle is, or this is what happens when I have my cycle. Meaning, maybe you have some symptoms, maybe you have, heavy bleeding, lots of pain. And I have to tell you, all that stuff is not normal. I can do a whole episode on what's considered normal or what can be considered red flags as it relates to the menstrual cycle, but we can get into that a little later. But it's important to see your doctor, because during those doctor's visits, you would have certain baseline tests where they do an ultrasound, they scan your ovaries, they can do blood tests to determine what your egg reserve is, things of that nature, right? So that you can make sure that you get that snapshot and baseline of where you are when you're ready to be on your fertility journey. So that's the second thing. The first thing is to make a plan. Number two, see your doctor. The next thing that I would say is to take your supplements. It's important to have at least 400 micrograms of folic acid each day. Now, folic acid falls under one of these vitamins and supplement topics or sections where it's important to have those prenatal vitamins, take your multivitamin. As women, we give off a lot, and that means that we deplete a lot in our bodies as well. So it's important to take in those multivitamins as a way to prepare your body for when you do get pregnant. And one of the things that's beneficial with the folic acid is that it helps prevent any defects or birth defects when it comes to the baby. And it's also good for their brain development and things of that nature. So it's important to also talk to your doctor about what supplements are good for you to take. Like a lot of the times, some of the supplements include vitamin D, making sure you have vitamin E, your B vitamins, DHEA, the folic acid, taking a really good multivitamin that gives you enough calcium, things of that nature. And again, this particular section can be a whole episode on its own on the best and most effective fertility supplements to take. So it's important to start at least with your folic acid when you're on that journey or preparing to be on that journey to start your fertility life. The next thing I would say that's important when you're preparing, getting ready so that you can prepare for your fertility, is try to stop, if you can, any alcohol, smoking, and recreational drug use. Now, with that being said, having a drink socially every once in a while, like for instance, my husband and I, we're not big drinkers, but let's say we're out, for instance, and having dinner with friends or family or celebrating an important holiday or milestone or something special in our lives. We may have a glass of wine or we have a drink, and that's not really what I'm saying. But when you're preparing your body for pregnancy or fertility, it's important to have as clean as a system as possible. Clean with respect to no toxins that come from the alcohol that can affect your liver, and the liver is one of the biggest, organs that you have in your body to help filter things through and help you absorb what's good or bad, right? So you want to make sure you don't consume too much alcohol. For instance, the smoking will affect your lungs, and there's just so many other issues that come along with smoking that we can definitely get into, but it's important to eliminate smoking, eliminate alcohol, and definitely the drugs. Now, I know that some recreational drugs, or however you want to say it, I'm not saying it in a judgmental way or anything. I don't really know. I just know that from the perspective of preparing for your fertility, it's important to not consume these drugs. Definitely speak with your doctor in the event that you are prescribed certain medications that are to help with other health issues that you may have. And at that point, you're under a doctor's care. So at that point, they will guide you more appropriately and just advise them that, hey, doc, I'm on this particular medication, or I know you're recommending this medication for me to take for this issue, whether it's, let's say, diabetes or cholesterol or your anxiety or, whatever. You want to also make sure that they are aware when you are ready to start on your fertility journey, so that you can find out how, if at all, being on certain medications will impact your fertility or not. It's really, really important to make sure you have that conversation with your doctor. So again, the next thing is trying to stop or eliminate, reduce alcohol consumption, smoking, and recreational drugs. One of the next things that we want to talk about is to avoid any toxic substances. For instance, environmental contaminants, any fertilizers, bug spray, feces. Sometimes we're just out in the field, depending on what type of work that we do. You may be exposed to certain things. But the stuff that you can control, for instance, in your home, you try to use products that have the least amount, if at all, none of the contaminants or chemical substances or toxic substances as possible, because it has been found that even men who work in certain industries or consume certain things or ingest certain toxins or chemicals, it affects their sperm. And yes, the sperm are created, and that's the good thing in the sense that the sperm can just keep making new ones in the semen. However, you just don't want to have to deal with that when it comes to possibly impairing their sperm, because we need those sperm to be healthy so that they can swim and, be the right shape, be the right count. You don't want to have a low sperm count. So it's important to try to avoid or stay away from any toxic substances, environmental contaminants. So look at those items that's under the cabinets in your house. When you open up the bottom of your bathroom cabinet or kitchen cabinet, just try to read the labels and make sure that you at least protect yourself, whether it's with gloves or a mask when you're using these items, to try to prevent or reduce the amount that you ingest them or things of that nature, because it can have some negative effects on or adverse effects on egg quality and sperm count and quality as well. So that's the next one, trying to steer clear of toxic substances. And the next thing on the list that I would like to talk about when it comes to preparing for your fertility, whether you're ready or not, is trying to reach and maintain a healthy weight. Now, the word healthy, of course, is subjective in the sense that, everyone's body is different. Everyone's genetically different as well. Different things that may affect one person may not impact another. So that's why it's about maintaining and reaching a healthy weight that's good for you. And again, that is something that you would sit with your doctor to determine what's best for you. And sometimes there's always there's usually a negative connotation that if someone is, bigger or weighs more, then that means they're unhealthy. That could be far from the truth. I've known, I actually worked with a young lady who was actually only 119 pounds. And whenever she went to the doctor, she would come back to work all upset because, as slim one would say that she was, her blood work was never ideal with respect to the levels in her body. Like, for instance, she always had high cholesterol to the point where it was dangerously low. I'm not low, dangerously high. So she would have to be on medication and, have to be put on exercise and things to help maintain and control her cholesterol. So although her lifestyle may not have been the contributing factor to that elevated cholesterol number, it was probably genetic, right? So you can't look at someone from the external and say, okay, well, they're skinny, so they're healthy, which means in turn, well, they're big, so that means they're not healthy. That's far from the truth, because I also know women who are a little bit on the heavier side and their sugar are normal, their sugar numbers are normal. They have no such thing as cholesterol. They don't have high blood pressure, and they're active and live a healthy lifestyle. So that word reaching and maintaining a healthy weight, work along with and in conjunction with your doctor to determine what's best for your lifestyle in terms of where you need to be when you're getting ready to prepare your body to get pregnant. So in keeping in line with that, oftentimes you have, and I've seen where people either over exercise and over diet, and that's also not healthy, because you want your body to find that balance, and exercising too much or doing too much of anything is just not good for you, right? Everything in moderation. So even the exercise, try not to go too hard. And again, that's with you talking with your doctor to determine, or your doctor, or maybe a fitness coach, or maybe a fertility coach. And we'll get into fertility coaching in a later episode, but speaking with the experts and the people that know and understand to determine what's best for you and your body to help optimize your chances of getting pregnant. The other thing that I wanted to talk about as it relates to getting prepared, and I had mentioned previously, having a clean diet or putting clean things in your body. With respect to that, and to take it a little bit further, having a clean diet means, introducing fruits and vegetables, nuts and grains into your diet, trying to eat more clean, meats that are more lean, ingesting more protein, having not as much trans fat in your diet, and also reducing the caffeine. Now, I have to tell you, with all of that, I was able to switch my diet when I was on my fertility journey. And for a few years, I was eating clean, which for me, after working with my acupuncturist who helped with my nutrition while I was on my journey, eating clean for me meant all green. So I had like broccoli, salad. My sister-in-law introduced me to edamame. So I had edamame. I had Brussels sprouts, everything green. And then with my protein, I actually invested in a George Foreman grill. Actually, you know what? I didn't invest in the George Foreman grill. I remember when it was time for me to go on this clean diet and change my way of eating. I remember my husband and I had received a George Foreman grill for our wedding as a wedding gift. And I was able to take that, went under my kitchen cabinet and was able to find it nicely packaged. So shout out to whoever that was that got us the George Foreman grill. It came in very, very handy, and it allowed me to go ahead and portion my chicken or any pork or veal or any type of meat that I would have. I had the right portion, and it would, the George Foreman grill was perfect. It was right there. It didn't take a long time to get ready. So for a few years, I was able to have the clean meats, not as much spices and different things that I was adding to it, just more on the natural side. in addition to my vegetables. So that helped a lot. And believe it or not, that helped with regulating my digestive system. So it got rid of a lot of internal inflammation. I was also on prebiotics and probiotics, which help make sure you have a healthy gut as well. And again, that's a whole nother conversation for another day as well. But we can get deeper into the nutrition aspect of that diet and preparing your body for an optimal fertility chance. Okay. So the next thing that I wanted to bring up, ready or not, let's be prepared for your fertility, is learning about your family history. Now, that is very, very important. Okay. So I have to tell you, I am of Haitian descent. My parents are Haitian immigrants. I am a first generation American born child, and I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. And I bring that up to say, just in my upbringing and based on people that were around me, it wasn't really common that people talked about what was going on or what family history or genetics or anything was about. Oftentimes, it's not until maybe something unfortunate happens, and then in passing, somebody may come to visit and they say, "Oh yeah, by the way, grandma such and such or aunt, D, or Uncle Joe had the same thing," and we're like, "Wait, what?" So why didn't anyone tell me? And I just think it's really important to learn your family history, because the older I'm getting, the more I'm realizing a lot of who we are, what we are, and how we are is basically passed down from generation to generation. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up and add that to this list of being prepared is because it's not until I suffered a very traumatic miscarriage that I learned that, my mom had miscarriages as well. Some women in my husband's family, the elders in his family, had some miscarriages. And now that I think about it, the more I think back, there actually is an aunt of mine, which is my uncle's wife, who, based on me being a 9-year-old girl and just, fiddling around and going over on the weekends and helping my aunt and uncle, I remember every time she got pregnant, she couldn't do much, meaning she had to basically rest, be in bed, or be on the sofa. She wasn't doing a lot of maneuvering or a lot of anything. And once the baby was born, of course, I'm just excited because I have a new cousin. So I was always over there nurturing and taking care and holding the baby, changing diapers. I just loved it. So now that I think back, I'm thinking she maybe had incompetent cervix, which of course we don't like that name. And they've changed to use a new term. It's called cervical insufficiency. So I'm thinking that's what she had, because all these years, fast forward, that is what resulted in my husband and I losing our first pregnancy. Our first daughter that I had to deliver was because of my cervix. So that's something that the more people talk about stuff. So any one of my young nieces now, my friends' daughters, whoever I find, I'm like, okay, make sure they check that cervix, because it's not something that people really talk about. And whether you're experiencing miscarriages, whether you have the cervix issue, there's sometimes family history of fibroids. There's sometimes family history of endometriosis or PCOS, which I also have. And it's very difficult because when no one talks about it, you don't know what to expect. So part of getting that snapshot that I mentioned in the first step or second step with talking to your doctor to get that snapshot of your fertility, incorporated in that snapshot should be your family history, because that way it doesn't mean that if it happened to them, it's automatically going to happen to you, but at least Remember, I'm really big on being educated and finding out as much as you can. So it's important to try to speak with the women in your family, and even the men, because they have, sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles that can be helpful when it comes to you finding out some of the history in your family as well. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, we have two more, we're almost there, is one of them is the fun part, right? And it's about getting busy, because one of the ways that you prepare for your fertility, right, whether you're ready or not, you're preparing by doing the do and doing the deed and getting busy, or doing what they call the baby dance. So it's important to have that sexual activity be very consistent. So obviously, if you're not trying to conceive, there are different ways to, prevent that, even though you're sexually active. But that's another video for another day. But in this particular case, being sexually active on a regular basis will indeed increase your chances for fertility. And some of the ways that work the best is if you're having sexual intercourse every day. But of course, some people can't do every day, whether it's because of schedule differences or, just time, energy, responsibilities, things of that nature. Then you go to maybe every other day. But especially around the ovulation time, you want to make sure that it's timed intercourse, that yes, you're having fun, but then you're also keeping in the back of your brain that it's about that time. So, you do the do in hopes of getting pregnant. Now, in some of the future episodes, I'll talk about when to know if it's time to seek help for your pregnancy. And that'll be after a certain amount of time that you are doing the deed and you are sexually active, unprotected, and nothing has happened. But in the sake of trying to prepare for fertility, it's important to do the do, right? You have to have, do the baby dance, so to speak, how they call it in the infertility forums. So finally, one of the things that I want to mention, and it's definitely just because it's last, it doesn't mean that it's least, is you have to get mentally healthy. It's really important to be in a great space mentally. And, it's really hard because a lot of times women, as much as we feel like we can take on the world and we can do everything, we don't really like to ask for help. Men too. We feel like we have to go things alone to either prove something or show that you did it by yourself or that you're okay all the time. And I'm here to tell you it's okay to not be okay. And life takes you on a roller coaster, whether you're on a baby making journey or not, whatever journey you're on, you're going to, experience ups and downs. And experiencing those ups and downs and ebbs and flows, it's important to check in mentally and get the help that you need so that once these things do happen, whether it happened because that's what you were looking for, right? That's what you wanted. Now it happened. Now what? So you have to be mentally prepared for that. Or whether it's being mentally prepared for what if it doesn't happen? Or what if it's taking a longer time to happen? Or what if it's not happening in the way that you thought? So now you have to be open and mentally prepared to research and look into other options, or even wanting to do that. But in order to navigate all of that and determine whether or not, what your next steps are, or whether or not you want to continue or not continue, you have to be okay mentally. It's good to have that, that space where you can go to and have someone that you can count on to help you get that mental clarity. For me, what really helped me a lot was just different phases of my life. I had different things that helped me with mental clarity. One of them was my therapist. I met her, of course, after I had that loss. That was just such a terrible experience, but I didn't realize how important it was to talk to somebody about that. And she's still my therapist to this day, and help me with things that don't only have to deal with fertility or grief or loss. So I know I can tap into her when that time is right. And the same for you all, if you have a good therapist that you can tap into. And oftentimes therapy is covered by insurance, but in the event you don't have insurance or your particular insurance doesn't cover it, there are some free sessions that are offered virtually, especially with the onset of COVID. A lot of more virtual options are available. So it's important to connect with a therapist or someone that can help you get that mental clarity so that you can then get your confidence up. You can have direction on what to do, what not to do, things of that nature. And, being mentally healthy also revolves around having a good support group, whether it's a friend, your family, your partner, work. Sometimes we make friends at work, right? They become your family in turn instead of just your work colleagues. So just whatever it takes to help get that mental clarity. And we can even have an episode in the future that talks about the mental health aspect of fertility and just for women in general, making sure that we're okay to be able to deal with all the other things that are thrown to us on a daily basis. So those are my tips for ready or not, be prepared for fertility. I think I ran over 8 or 9 things. And just to kind of summarize, I can go over them again. So even if you're not directly or immediately on a quest to start your family, it's important to start looking into your fertility to make sure you know where you are when you are ready to actually get to it, right? So the first thing is to make a plan and take action. Number 2 was to see your doctor, right? Number 3, those folic acid and all the other vitamins and supplements and things that are out there that are good to help facilitate and prepare your body for fertility, both men and women. Number 1, 2, 3. Number 4 is to stop and or reduce alcohol, smoking, recreational drugs. The next thing is to try to avoid toxic substances, environmental contaminants, any bug spray, fertilizer, things of that nature. You don't want to ingest that stuff as much as you possibly can to try to avoid it so that it doesn't negatively impact your fertility. You want to try and reach and maintain a healthy weight in conjunction with having a clean diet, which we talked about in a little bit of detail as well. The next thing is to learn your family history. It's amazing how just having certain conversations with your family and bringing things up, ask questions so that you can know whether or not some of their lived experiences would trickle down to you and how you prepare for them if they end up affecting you as well. The next thing is to be sexually active, right? If you're trying to be prepared, there are ways to best time and quantify your sexual activity just to make sure that you're maximizing your chances of actually conceiving. And finally on the list was getting mentally healthy. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to invest in yourself. And investing in yourself means you're investing in ways to make sure that you have that mental clarity so that you're up for and prepared for and can do all the things that we're called to do. So, I don't know about y'all, but that was a lot, right? But I'm so excited. I thank you so much for tuning in. Please feel free to reach out to me and contact me if you're, regardless of where you are in your fertility journey, whether you're, pre-planning, right? Or you're already in it, or you're, trying to decide what to do next after having experienced some parts. And also reach out to me for all things women. I am also very well versed in a lot of things that have to do with relationships or women's confidence, mentoring, leadership, your career, just whatever it takes to help us women be better versions of ourselves. So thank you so much for tuning in. That is a wrap on our very first segment, Your Fertility Matters, episode 1, Ready or Not, Be Prepared for Your Fertility. I am your host, Marlene DeRosso. Thank you so much, and come back to join us on the Women Matter podcast.